So, what's a good project? This class is the IT Integrative Capstone Project class. What does it mean to have, and this is what you want, by the way, if you don't know what I'm saying, I mean, you want a good project because that's how I'll assess you. The grade will be based upon the project that you produce here. A good project, first of all, produces an acceptable product. One way that we all know that you had a good project is when you're all done, you have an acceptable product. This is a loaded term, acceptable. Acceptable to who? Yeah, it should probably be whom, but it sounds funny to me. Answer, the ultimate client. Not me. Could be me if I'm the client. Not Professor Hoppy. But the ultimate client. In other words, the person who came to you and said, this is what I want. When you're all done with your project, it was a good project if, first of all, the product that you produced was acceptable to them. Okay? The customer, the client, the user determines whether it's good or bad. Yep, that's how it works. Second aspect of a good project, it follows a defined process. Good projects are not just thrown together. It's not something that just stays in your mind. There's a process that needs to be followed. You'll do certain things. Why? Because this is how professionals do their work. There's a process that's followed there. Okay? And thirdly, for this class, these first two apply anywhere. But the third one is just for this class. It needs to be at an appropriate level. In other words, what you're going to do in this class is going to be bigger than any homework assignment you've had in any other class. It's going to be bigger than any project you've had in any other class. This is meant to be a substantial project, something that shows your mastery of information technology. Okay. Again, if we're focusing on, let's go back, a good project, what does acceptable mean? First of all, solves the problem. If the product that you make doesn't solve the problem that the user has, it's not acceptable. Okay? I was going to pick on some real projects. Maybe I should just leave it at that. It makes sense, right? If it doesn't really solve the problem, if it doesn't work, it's not an acceptable product. We'd all say that. If you shelled out $500 to license a piece of software and it didn't do what you wanted it to do, you'd be really upset. Absolutely. Now, I point this out because this is how I'm going to assess your projects. If on May 3rd, when you submit something, it doesn't solve the problem, it's not acceptable. An acceptable product works correctly. And you're saying, aren't those the same thing? Not exactly. In some other classes, we've talked about the difference here between internal operation and external appearance, etc. I won't reiterate all that, but if it seems, if you don't quite see the difference between those things, I'm going to encourage you to take a look at Chapter 7 in the Brookshire text there. Working correctly and solves the problem may not exactly be the same thing, but they both have to exist in order for the product that is produced to be acceptable. The third one is the one that oftentimes gets overlooked. There are many products that actually solve the problem, that function correctly, but are really difficult to use. In the project that you are going to undertake for this class, I want you to explicitly think about usability. To do that, you're going to have to recall some of the major concepts from the 20 class, CSC 520, 820, human-computer interaction. Just having something doesn't mean that it can be used effectively by people. So I'm going to ask you to dust off those notes, pull out that book, you know, the Priest book on interaction design, and think about some of those issues as you are going through your project to ensure that your product can be used by people. Good. Acceptable product. That's one of the criteria that I'm going to use to assess what you complete in this class. Another criteria that I'm going to use to assess how well you've done